Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's event. It follows you every place you go, the Aftermath of Guantánamo. My name is Aliyah Hussain, and I'm an advocacy program manager at the Center for Constitutional Rights. I'm thrilled to be co-moderating this important conversation. As always, I'd like to start with some gratitude. A big thank you to our co-hosts, Muslim Counterpublics Lab, Witness Against Torture, No More Guantánamos, and the Guantánamo Survivors Fund. Thank you to our speakers for making the time to join us and share their stories. We are honored to be with them, and we look forward to learning from them. And we keep our fingers crossed that there aren't too many technical difficulties. Special thank you to our colleagues who are helping with ASL interpretation and captions. You can find the interpretation here on your screen, thank you, Rashida, and captions at a special link that we'll share. And last but not least, thank you for tuning in for this discussion. Today, June 26th, is the UN International Day in support of victims of torture. President Biden put out a statement today to mark the occasion. In it, he says, "I reaffirm the United States' opposition to all forms of inhumane treatment and our commitment to eliminating torture and assisting the torture survivors as they heal and in their quest for justice." Later on, it says, "Torture destroys lives, families, and communities." As I was reading this, it reminded me of another quote by a famous president. "We tortured some folks." President Obama, 2014. Today, 0 senior government officials have been held accountable for the wrongful detention and torture at Guantánamo. Earlier this afternoon, the Special Rapporteur on the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms while Countering Terrorism, it's a mouthful, issued a report following her Guantánamo site visit, the first by any UN expert to the prison. We'll have the opportunity to discuss some of her powerful findings later on, but I wanted to uplift 2 quotes from her report that really stuck out to me. The first quote, the report reads, "In every meeting she held with a detainee or former detainee, the Special Rapporteur was told with great regret that she had arrived too late. She agrees. My heart sunk when I read it's too late. For so many men, 20 years of detention, injustice, stigma, unhealed scars has ruined their lives. It can feel like it's too late. And in some ways, it is. The damage is done and no effort will be enough. But at the same time, we know it's never too late to demand what is right and that there are still actions the US government can take that would make a material difference in the lives of Guantánamo survivors." And as the Special Rapporteur says, the second quote I want to uplift, "The world has and will not forget. Without accountability, there is no moving forward on Guantánamo." The work that often gets the most attention is the fight to end indefinite detention and close the prison. But what's also critically important to uplift is the circumstances that many men find themselves after they're released, with little to no support from the country that stole precious years of their lives. The aftermath is the other side of the coin of the United States' cruel detention system and the legacy of torture. Indeed, it follows you every place you go. This is a quote by Mansour Gaddafi, who you'll hear from later today, in a BBC interview where he describes the long shadow of Guantánamo. It affects so many parts of his life, he sees it everywhere. Though each story and experience of life after Guantánamo varies in terms of specifics, there's so much that ties them together, and that's what we'll discuss today. We wanted to organize this event to shine a light on the aftermath, to hear directly from survivors, not only about their experiences in detention and what shape their lives have taken after, but also their organizing. They are imagining a better and more just future and are leading the way. We also want to uplift the incredible work of the Guantánamo Survivors Fund, made up of organizations that have committed to this justice work for decades. They're responding to the basic needs of survivors and giving us all ways that we can support. They and other groups have stepped in where the US government has not. Their goal is to raise $6,000 today, and so I'm hoping those of you tuning in will help them get there. I'm going to pass on the mic to my dear friend and co-moderator, Dr. Maha Halal. Maha is a Muslim Arab American and an expert researcher and writer on institutionalized Islamophobia. She's the author of the book Innocent Until Proven Muslim, Islamophobia, the War on Terror, and the Muslim Experience Since 9/11. She's the founding executive director of the Muslim Counterpublics Lab and a longtime organizer with Witness Against Torture. So again, thank you for joining, and passing it over to you, Maha.
Thank you, Aaliyah, for that excellent introduction. And thank you all for joining us today on the UN Day in support of victims of torture. As Aaliyah said, my name is Dr. Maha Hilal, and I'm the executive director of the Muslim Counterpublics Lab. So Aaliyah in her remarks mentioned a statement that was made by President Biden to commemorate this day. And in addition to the quotes that Aaliyah mentioned, he also stated that the U.S. has a commitment to eliminating torture and assisting torture survivors as they heal and in their quests for justice. This is an important quote because we're here today precisely because the United States has not done that for victims of its own torture. Every year when we commemorate this day, official statements from the U.S. government whitewash and erase the violence that it itself has inflicted throughout the course of history of the United States and in the contemporary context of the War on Terror. In addition, Secretary of State Blinken said in a statement parallel to Biden's that we recognize the bravery, humanity, and dignity of torture survivors around the world. And he also noted that the U.S. is the largest contributor to the UN Voluntary Fund for Victims of Torture, which supports rehabilitation and justice programs to help victims around the world in their healing. And we urge other countries to support them as well. The United States does not support, and this will be reiterated many times throughout the program, again, victims of its own torture. So this day shouldn't be used as a way for the United States to deflect accountability and responsibility for its own crimes. And that's where all of us come in. So as an organization, as a Muslim organization in particular, Muslim Counterpublics Lab works to disrupt and subvert dehumanizing narratives that have been designed and deployed to justify state violence against Muslims. One of our core programs is Redressing Injustice Help Desk, through which we helped create the Guantánamo Survivors Fund. This is a citizen fund for which no other fund exists to support survivors of U.S. state violence, and in particular, of course, Guantánamo survivors. Not only does the U.S. not provide tangible support, those who leave Guantánamo are forever marked with the stigma of being a terrorist, and they exist in a context in which there is a constant proliferation of Islamophobia around the world, which was spearheaded most acutely in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. So, as Leah mentioned, our goal today is to raise $6,000, which will provide grants to 2 to 3 men, Guantánamo survivors. Since we launched the fund last year in April, we have raised $55,000 from donors around the world and the US to help survivors. We've interviewed over 10 survivors thus far to ascertain what their needs are and how we can support them. We've provided money for rent, utilities, school fees, support for a survivor who was an amputee, down payment on a car for a survivor who needed to work on his own schedule because of a disability, and many other things. So it's crucial for all of us as people who care about Guantanamo survivors and survivors of US state violence to help us meet our goal today. Because simply put, if we do not demand and raise the call for justice from the US government, no one else will. And as we wait for that justice, as survivors wait for that justice, it is up to all of us to support them in their quest. So we're blessed today to be joined by three incredible survivors who all have different stories of their time at Guantanamo and life after Guantanamo. The first is Mansour Adaifi, and we'll let them introduce themselves in just a minute. Mansour Adaifi is someone I call a dear friend. He's the director of outreach for the Guantanamo Survivors Fund. He's also an award-winning author and is a Guantanamo Project coordinator for CAGE. He was detained in Guantanamo for over 14 years. In 2016, he was transferred to Serbia, where he is striving to make a new life for himself and to transcend the label of suspected terrorist. His book, Don't Forget Us Here, Lost and Found at Guantanamo, earned the Arab American National Museum's Evelyn Shakir Nonfiction Award and the Muslim Bookstagram Best Adult Book Award. His writing has been featured in numerous publications, including The Guardian, Al Jazeera, and the New York Times Modern Love column. He received the Richard Margolis Award for Nonfiction Writers of Social Justice Journalism. He is a dedicated advocate for the rights of the men still detained in Guantanamo, and he has established and maintains contact with many Guantanamo survivors to provide support and solidarity for them
Can
as
you
they
hear
seek
me?
to rebuild their lives. Yes, we can hear Ahmed. Ahmed Irashidi is a former Guantanamo prisoner and Moroccan chef who spent 5.5 years detained. He's also the author of the incredible and excellent book, The General, The Ordinary Man Who Challenged Guantanamo. And last but not least, we hope to be joined by Sufyan Barhoumi, who's having some technical issues, who was detained at Guantanamo for 20 years until he was transferred last year to Algeria, where he calls home. So before we get to the questions of survivors, I just want to mention the Survivor Fund again. Our goal today is to raise $6,000. And as of now, we have raised $760. If you can help us get to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever you can donate in the course of this program, we would be very appreciative. So I'm going to hand it off to Mansour, and hopefully Sufyan will be able to join us, and Ahmed will be able to hear us. So Mansour, let me pass it over to you.
Okay, boy, be ready, guys. Okay, first of all, today I have a special guest with us. First, I would like to welcome you all, and there is special welcoming and greeting to my sister Khadija, and I would like you all to
Can you
welcome
hear me?
her.
Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
نعم نسمعك يا أحمد نسمعك. Can you mute yourself, please? He can't hear us. So, basically, I would like to, before we start, I'd like to, the usual greeting to everyone. Uh, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يا هلا مرحبا مرحبا حياكم الله أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا مليون ارحبوا 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 ارحبوا. And there was special greetings at Guantanamo. It wasn't just greetings. It was a way to support and encourage each other and to signal a message to the interrogators, to the torturer, no matter what they do, we would still stand. It was حبا حبا باللي جا باللي جا يا مرحبا باللي جا باللي جا. So I would like to welcome you all today. Today, as you know, it is the UN International Day for Support of Victim of Torture. And yeah, I will hand it back to you, Maha.
Ahmed, can you hear us now? No. Okay. We are still trying to get the sound off. So maybe Ahmed, if you can log on and come back on and see if that works. Sufyan, why don't we go to you? Could you introduce yourself?
احب نشوف 10 هذيك على وش 10 سنة.
Sufyan?
اسمع افتح الطلب هذا. ها مروان
Sufyan? Yes, Sufyan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
It's not
No
trap
worries.
today. I want to go back to home, but traffic. I'm sorry for that, but we can manage that. No problem. I can hear you very well.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
I try it first time I know to front of people. I am Sufyan Barhomi, former detainees from Algeria. I get released last year, April 2022, for 20 years, complete 20 years. I was called by 694 for 20 years. When I get when I get in Algeria, they call me Sufyan. I feel like very strange, like somebody else, not me. This what, yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's check and see if Ahmed. Ahmed, can you hear us? Okay, why don't we, Aliyah, why don't we go to the questions and we'll work on getting Ahmed on stage.
Sure. And thanks everyone for your patience. I know technology sometimes works against us, but I'm grateful to have you all here and really excited, especially to be in conversation with Sufyan. Sufyan's one of CCR's clients. I met with him in Guantánamo. I shared his words many times at various rallies and events. And he never stopped believing that he would be out. And I never stopped believing he'd be out. So it's really special to have him here tonight. So we have a few questions. Well, eventually we'll open it up to audience Q&A, but we have a few questions that we're going to ask and hopefully kind of just go around and answer. We'll start with Mansour. We'll go to Sufyan, and then Ahmed, inshallah, can join us. The first question is, you know, you're all here because we know that you want to use your voice to advocate for what is happening at Guantánamo still with the other brothers. Why do you think that's important? Why do you think it's important that we all work to close Guantánamo? Mansour, do you want to start?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Maha. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aliyah. You know, it's not just important. I think it is our obligation. It's a duty on the victim to speak out, because the speaking out, I always believe that keeping silence, it's another form of oppression. Keeping silence, it only adds some kind of legitimacy. It adds support to the oppressor. So by speaking out, you bring awareness, you tell people the truth, and you encounter the injustice that happened, and also to have an accountability and to see justice in future justice. We need to speak out. We need to bring awareness to what happened. So this one of the reasons we need to speak out. We talk as I am a victim, but I refuse to play the role of victim, because being a victim, that's mean I have to hide. That what most of the former Guantanamo detainees, they don't want to live in the stigma. It's hard to speak out, and that the reason to speak out, to seek accountability, to seek protection for the young future generation, that won't happen again. So it's not a matter of, but it's a matter of obligation. It's mandatory on the victim to speak out. And yeah, it's not easy. Sometimes you have to sacrifice, but we would sacrifice that for the betterment of humanity.
Thanks, Mansoor. Sufyan, why is it important for you to use your voice to advocate for Guantanamo's closure? I think you're on mute, Sufyan.
I don't hear the last, Aliyah.
Yeah, just why do you think it's important to tell everyone and work to close Guantanamo?
Because it's simple. Make like a simple word, a simple phrase. Because I was there for 20 years. I was victim. I say, like anybody else. I feel what they feel. They're suffering. I suffer what they're suffering. I still with them every time in my mind. I never forget that place. Is like a half, more than half for my life, and also the most problem over there. You wait for like limbo. You don't know what your destiny. You're still waiting until a psychology, for example, Biden government, the next government, when it going to happen to them, because it happened to me before. I was 2016, I was ready to go to get released, and the last minute, like last month, for 2 months before the Trump administration, they came, they shut down everything, because every government they have on policy. Now, like, this is a problem. The door, if it's open, you have a chance. If you lost your chance, you can stay for a few years, like 4 years, 6 years. I know some of my brothers, Bayhani, Tawfiq Bayhani, for example, 3 times he get on the list. They take him off on the list for 12 years. I know him very well. He's a good friend to me and anybody else, my brothers. We have to be close to Guantanamo because it's done. It's over 21 years is enough. It's sufficient. No need to because it's very obvious, very clear. You have to be close this place. Everything is done. The case Afghanistan is done. The case is shut down. No more war. A lot of reason that's have to be close the place. No, this is what I come my mind. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sufyan.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ahmed is with us right now.
Can please see Lasma. Unmute, and they do unmute, and then it goes back and mute itself automatically.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
He's muted, Can you unmute him? Okay.
Ahmed, I think that we can hear you now. Ahmed.
Not for the no. No.
Can you hear through the phone with Neda? Neda, can you let us know, is Ahmed able to hear the program through your phone? Sorry, all. Thank you for your patience.
It's still a very beautiful sight to see the three of you on the screen with us.
So you're gonna hear me through the phone, yeah? Okay. Can you hear me through the phone correctly? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, my name is Ahmed Al Rashidi, Uh, I was imprisoned in 2002. I was released 2007. Almost 5.5 years in Guantanamo. Um, uh, I spent 4 years out of 5.5 years in isolation. Yeah, I'm from Morocco. That's it, I guess. Can you
Ahmed,
hear me?
if you can hear me, my other question was just why you are using your voice to bring attention to the fact that Guantanamo should close, and that people, continue thinking of the
Don't hear
brothers who are
you.
there.
He can't
Ahmed,
hear you.
Well, if I hear you correctly, and you're asking me why Guantanamo should be closed, yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Well, it's not. I'm using my voice because I was a victim, and I'm still a victim of Guantanamo of the injustice, and I'm a victim of the dismantling of the rule of law that occurred after 9/11, and it's still going on up to today. So, let me just explain that Guantanamo and what's happening in Guantanamo is not an issue. It's not something that has to do only with the prisoners, the ex-prisoners or ex-detainees of Guantanamo and their families. The issue of Guantanamo concern. It should be a concern of every citizen of this world who believes in human rights and who believes in the rule of law and who believes in democracy. This is a core principle of people who believe in freedom. I mean, this is not just something to do with the people who've been in Guantanamo and their families. This is something to do with everybody who believes in human rights. And I mean, whether he lives in America or in Europe or in Africa, wherever they are, these should come together and raise their voice. I mean, this should not happen. How could this happen in 21st century that people being in cages with no charge, with no trial for 21 years? And the perpetrators are the American government. I mean, this is done not by the third world country. I mean, if this is happened in Iran or in the third world country, I mean, okay, it's a third world country, but this is happening in America. I mean, the promoters of the rule of law, the promoters of human rights, and the custodian of so-called justice. I mean, come on. I mean, we all know that in America, you cannot hold somebody against their will for more than depends on different states. In some states, 48 hours. Some other states, more than 72 hours. And here we are, people being without charge, without trial for 21 years, being held against their will. By whom? By the Americans, by the promoters of the rule of law, by the I mean, this is an issue that has, you know, it's a provocation by the U.S. government, and it's a challenge to all those who believe in human rights and who believe in justice. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Is that went through? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you so much to all of you for speaking out and risking even more to share your voices, because we know that the United States does not want survivors of torture to showcase and highlight the violence that it has inflicted. So, our second question for all of you is if you can tell us some of the barriers you have faced in rebuilding your lives after being released from Guantanamo. And maybe we can start with you again, Mansoor.
Yeah. Thank you, Maha. First of all, let us see the truth and the reality. Like today we heard beautiful words from American rulers, the one who initiated Guantanamo. I'm talking about officials, not individuals. The one who issued this kind of like annual statements, encounters, torture policies, support, finance. But when it comes to Guantanamo, it's out of the justice system. It's out of our humanity. So when you talk about life after Guantanamo in particular, we live in Guantanamo 2.0 in short words, literally. Guantanamo 2.0. And as you know, Maha, in 2020, I finished my bachelor degree, and my research was about, you are my mentor, what about like rehabilitation and reintegration of former Guantanamo detainees into social life and the labor market. So the release from Guantanamo, process of release from Guantanamo, there was, as you know, the process, resettlement agreement between the United States and the hosting countries, security process, making sure those prisoners integrate into society, taken care of. It's like BS, basically. United States, with each release, they will send a package of money to the hosting government, and that money disappeared in the black hole. So some of the prisoners who were lucky enough end up in countries like Germany, Ireland, they managed, because the environment, the economy of the country, they managed to wear the life. Still, there's some problems. Being in Guantanamo, stigma is a huge challenge. When I asked one of the former Guantanamo detainees who was resettled in Germany, and he has a good life, a citizenship, work, job, wife, kids, car, he said, Alhamdulillah, everything's okay. Only one thing: if the people know I was in Guantanamo, my life would turn upside down. Just imagine I have 3 children at the school, how their life would be. So even at that, living in that fear, it's just like hunt you down. Plus, there wasn't any kind of rehabilitation or integration program. Those prisoners spent 5, 10, 15, 20 years tortured, abused, left with damaged emotion, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically. And there was no any kind of rehabilitation or integration or therapy to help them. On the contrary, when you're being sent to a country, some of us even treated worse, like the case in the United Arab Emirates, which one Russian is still there, Ravil, basically. And this man, 15 years in Guantanamo, we're talking about almost 7 years in the United Arab Emirates. And those who imprisoned there, they said, Wallahi, United Arab Emirates is worse than Guantanamo. So there was a lot of challenges, difficulties, newly, in short words, like some of the cases, new legal status, like Kazakhstan, people house arrest, they cannot travel, they cannot get married, they cannot work, no family visits, they don't have any kind of IDs, they cannot send or receive anything. We're talking about people, some prisoners who were sent to Senegal, they were deported back to Libya, where they're imprisoned and tortured. One of them died 3 months ago. He had some kind of like health conditions. He never treated in Guantanamo. He was tortured when he back to Libya. And eventually, when I think Kay sent him some money, he went to Turkey to get treated. And they told him, you have cancer stage 3, and he died. So we are talking about those prisoners who were released from the United Arab Emirates to Yemen. They were shipped, not released. No life at all, Some of the prisoners end up like dying because there was no medical treatment. Some of the prisoners still until that day in prison since 2007, 15 in Saudi Arabia. 2 of them actually have been sentenced to death. We are talking about prisoners in Albania that were released in 2007. Until that day, they have no legal status, they have no IDs. We are talking about prisoners where else? In many countries, the United States view those detainees they want to get rid of them. They knew it wasn't. Most of the cases were either like, as you know, most of the prisoners were mistaken identity or sold for bounty money. They were tortured and abused, mistreated, and like kept indefinitely without rights. And they saw them as a problem they need to get rid of. As what they were told by the receiving government, they said the American told them, it is your responsibility now. we have nothing to do with them. So life after Guantanamo, or Guantanamo 2.0, it's the extent of Guantanamo. It is my behind. You are going, inshallah, soon, maybe next year, we're going to publish the book Life After Guantanamo. So, we haven't seen any kind of even not justice, because justice is a big word. We haven't seen our freedom, because what is freedom? You cannot just ship me to another Guantanamo, live under restrictions, deprive me of basic rights, and you tell me you are free. No, I'm not free. I'm not free, and I will keep fighting for my freedom. I will keep fighting for my right as long, because freedom is like a life necessity. It's like food, like air, like water. My human right is like a life necessity. I can't live without them. This is in my principle. You cannot put me in a country or somewhere. I will never accept that. It's like, I'm talking about me, about Mansour, for one. We are two in one. So basically, this is life after Guantanamo. I can keep just talking about many cases, many death, many torture, many life after Guantanamo. So when we saw that the government, no government is willing to support, not the US government, as you know, Maha, we started the Guantanamo Survivors Fund that we today ask our viewers to donate and support, because we are doing what those governments refuse to do exactly. Yeah. So we tried to raise some money, track those cases, because I'm tracking almost like all those cases, report them, and trying to support them as much as we can. Some in healthcare, some they have in financial support for, mostly it's healthcare, and try to make them. It's not rehabilitation, it's not integration, but it is at least to support in any way we can. So I don't want to take long to give some details and stories, but if you need more, you can ask later, please.
Thank you so much for that, Mansour. Sufyan, could you answer our question as well? And I can repeat the question if that would be helpful. So our question is, what are some of the barriers you have faced in rebuilding your life after being released from Guantanamo?
Yes, the problem is to build our life or something. You have to be, even I talking about 20 years is not enough. But I'm trying to be something makes sense and shortcut, and of course when I have 20 years, when I get out, I'm shocked because my family, they can support me so much they want it, but the condition is that is different. Okay. And also when I got engaged in society, I try very hard. I try to work, make a what they call demand, all rejected, no answer, because for my case and also for my disabilities, I'm still suffering to get a bit my building. This is a small project. I don't have more support. So for example, I want to get married. Until now, I'm still searching for the bride. Nothing yet. As you can do. This is how human being rise. You can't do something by yourself. You have to be help to each other. To people. This is society. I don't have any support. They support me a little bit. Your lawyers is not enough. What they can to try the best. I appreciate all their effort, every one of you, and any human rights to support Guantanamo Bay, the case. But because I have problem, for example, to rent, I have rent house by my own. It's expensive. When you do have job, is difficulty because you spend the money. You consume, this is problem. Even I try to get computer, for example, to do my life, for example, for my story, my experience to try to begin is expensive. I can't get, I can't. But I have hope always the faith and the belief. This keep I'm lucky to get released, and secondly, I have my mind still function. No, I don't say 100%. I have some problem. Say psychology is a problem. Not crazy, but I'm something. Take time to get over it. To get overstep your situation, because a lot of obstacles in your life. This is life for everyone, but especially us as Guantanamo former detainees. A lot of difficulties, because for 20 years, one time you get out, you see the people. Even when I try to walk, swear to God, I don't know how to walk. I just look to people like a first time, because like I was living from Guantanamo like not savage, like a isolation for isolate from the world. When I can say we have believe in a God, and have believed for you guys too, and even human rights, human being, to try to support people as human be after all. Don't have to be believe Muslim is not Muslim, but we are just to share our voices, to explain to people we are human after all. We are human after all, just to feel as people suffering for everyone, for every human being in the different situation, different case. I hope this is our voice to go true to the heart, the true people, to try to help Guantanamo Bay or any human being need to help. We just say more people get out for our borders, inshallah, soon, and to support them, support us, support them, to try to engage society, because when they say about us we are the terrorists or this is BS, we are human. We choose our life, yes, of course, and every one of us in this world, they make mistake. Everyone, they believe what they mistake. I'm not saying when I get command it's mistake. No, it's my destiny. I accept my destiny. I'm satisfied, because this from the God. Everyone, they have a test in this life, but I try to try to give a message for everyone. Don't judge people. Don't judge people what you hear, we say our culture, what you hear, what you have to see. Not you have to see the judge people every people just you hear, he said this bad or good. Because in the end, the God he's judging us. And try to do the good things in the life. I won't try to do it, but this may make experience to share with the people to get to be positive to people, for to hear us, to everyone, any advice to people, and uh, this is what I try to say in my mind. And thank you if I messed up. I tried this first time for me, and thank you for everyone.
Thank you so much, Sufyan. And Ahmed, we'll turn over to you. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Aftermath of Guantánamo. There's two difference of trauma. There's a psychological trauma, and there's a physical trauma that ex-prisoners go through. There's a physical one, like for instance, people who suffered, who developed hemorrhoids in Guantanamo. They still suffering from hemorrhoids up to now. I'm one of those people, and almost every night, I'm talking about physical pain, physical trauma. In my case, every single night, almost every night, like 2, 3, 4 times a night, I feel the pain in my elbow. Okay, in this pain here in my elbow. Why? Because when we were in Kandahar prison, they used to tie us with the rope, with an army rope through our elbows, and then they tie like 10 prisoners together and they pull us. So you find one person is pulling 9 people behind him, and so on. So I'm still suffering from that pain. Every night I get the pain in my elbow. There's some kind of vein, some kind of vein. Maybe maybe it's been veins been touch has been, something wrong with my vein, so I get the pain because the blood doesn't circulate properly through my arms during the night. Also, I've got problem with my skull, because for the lack of hygiene, we were not allowed to wash for 3 months in Kandahar. So I've developed some disease on my skull. So up to today, I'm still suffering from those three illnesses at least. So I'm talking about physical ones. So psychological ones, people who've been in Guantanamo, they don't feel the same. They walk in the street, they don't feel the same. I don't feel the same. Regardless, never mind the material, whether I make money or I have a good living or I can't make a living. Despite all that, regardless of all that, I'm talking about when you walk in the streets just as a normal human being, you don't feel the same. You feel that people are watching you, people are looking at you. It's very strange. I cannot explain it the correct way, the way I feel. You walk in the street and you know that people looking at you, or you keep asking yourself, do these people know who I am? And do these people know where I come from? And do these people know what I have been through? Okay. So you keep asking yourself these questions. You walk in the street and this is a mindset. You cannot get rid of it. Guantanamo, just like your shadow. People who've been in Guantanamo, they live their life after Guantanamo, aftermath of Guantanamo. People walk in the street, and Guantanamo, just like your shadow, is with you. And purely because I think as long as Guantanamo is still open, this trauma will go on and people will suffer. And as long as there is no accountability, people like George Bush, like Cheney, like the big generals who were responsible for the opening of Guantanamo, those people still at large, those people still getting a standing ovation when they are on the stage. Like George Bush, and I saw him the other day, getting a standing ovation with his suits and a tie. So when the victims of Guantanamo look at this man, who have used us as scapegoats, he has used us as scapegoats, and he has conned the American people. He had lied to the American people. He had conned the American. It was a political con. Guantanamo, it was a political con. And we've been used as a scapegoat, okay? So George Bush said that he's going to get the perpetrators to justice back in 2001. Now, after 21 years, where's the perpetrators? Where's justice? I was used as a scapegoat for 5.5 years. Other people have been used for 21 years and still going on. So as long as Guantanamo is still open, as long people in charge of Guantanamo haven't been held accountable, so the trauma will go on for the people. Unfortunately, the trauma and the psychiatric trauma will go on for the people of Guantanamo. They will suffer as long as I said, game was still open and there is no accountability.
Yeah, Maha, let me add something to some of the stories, just to bring down stories after Guantanamo. For example, one of the former Guantanamo detainees who died left a wife and children. The Albanian government told the family, literally, you will be evicted from the apartment and no monthly support. So the woman was literally crying, and she reached out, like, what should I do? One of the cases, one of the former Guantanamo detainees who was released from the United Arab Emirates, he had a kidney failure, and he doesn't have support to do medical treatment. Because in Guantanamo, it destroys our bodies physically. We all have, many of us have symptoms, but it got worse when you got out from Guantanamo. You face difficulties, and there is no kind of healthcare system held those prisoners, former prisoners, to back to or to get treated. So on, many cases we deal with them almost daily, because we have a WhatsApp group, we communicate, we talk, and you have a case here, you have someone who's stuck somewhere, someone who's in prison, someone who's stopped at the airports. Like, for example, in my case, I don't want to talk about myself, honestly, but I'm saying that because in case Maha, like 6 years, I wasn't allowed to have my own passport. So there is like a system intention to keep those prisoners at the poverty stage of poverty, so they can do have no effect. In some countries, prisoners, the former prisoners, has to sign a document they will never talk to the media or lawyers or NGOs. So Maha actually is the one who involved to get my passport. She went a few times to Yemen embassy to get my passport. And also my sister Khadija helped a lot. So to be honest, like to talk about Guantanamo, we can go on and on. Imagine just you being thrown 10, 15, 20 years, torture, abuse, you get out, no support. For example, one of the cases now, this case, Said Bakush, released 2 months ago after he was in prison for 21 years. And the agreement between the United States and the Algerian government and should be released. And instead, he's still in jail. They brought him before the judge without any legal representation. And the judge told him, you are going to be stripped of your civil rights. Said told him, okay, send you back to Guantanamo. They sent him, they shaved. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, brother. They shaved his hair and his head and they sent him to prison. You know, humiliation. And no, when I get involved in his case, I contacted the lawyers in the United States. We get him a lawyer with the help from brother Sufyan. We get him a lawyer. We contact his lawyer in the United States. We contact State Department, and we haven't gotten even like to release him. I mean, like 2 months after 21 years. Now the Algerian came with the new accusation, which says he swore allegiance to Osama bin Laden. The man was never in Afghanistan. He never met Osama bin Laden. His lawyer in the United States said even American government didn't accuse him of that. So being a former Guantanamo Guantanamo, you become just a victim. You know, anyone can say anything about you. He was in Guantanamo. So those are the cases we are trying to cover, especially with the Guantanamo Survivors Fund. And this kind of program, you know, it got only support from the public, from the people. This is the case we cover. This is what we work. Sorry, man.
Thanks so much for that, Mansour, and for everyone's comments. I really appreciate how you all, in different ways, have hit the point that it's sort of like a false dichotomy between past and present, that with Guantanamo, even if it is in your past, it's still very much in your everyday. What's interesting here is we have a range of people and experiences. I know Ahmed was released about 5.5 years after he was detained. Sufyan, on the other hand, was detained for 20 years and was released last year, and Mansour a few years earlier. So you have 3 people who spent different lengths of detention, and also some who have been resettled to third countries, other people who have been repatriated home, and yet they still struggle in different ways. So I appreciate your different perspectives because they show the similarities. Mansour, it's really shocking when you share these small examples because they're so egregious, and we know that there are so many more than just the examples that you gave us. You know, I think it surprises a lot of people that the US, I mean, maybe it doesn't surprise people, but that the US government transfers people after holding them for so many years and then sort of washes their hands clean. I think we know the answer to this, but it would be helpful to hear from any of you whether the US government has helped in any way. Whether your host government, if you feel comfortable sharing, has helped in any way. We know about the Survivors Fund. We'll talk more about it. They're trying to help, but curious if any of the governments involved have done anything to try to support you, and if you can share a bit, just to show for people really the lack of support that I think we're going to hear. But maybe Sufyan, if you feel comfortable sharing whether the US government or the Algerian government has helped in any way, And then we'll go to Ahmed, and then you, Mansoor.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, no, nobody help. As I said, my brother says, I was with Ahmed, but suffering. We still, I'm shy to say, but I have to say it. We're still suffering. Still, even I get here soon, not too much time, like a long time ago. But as Ahmed mentioned, Mansoor, we're still suffering. We're not like normal people, and I'm still suffering a lot of things. But I'm shy to say it because I'm embarrassed to say it, but I'm still suffering psychology, memory. I forget for sometimes somebody talking to me, my mind go somewhere. A lot of things are still affected me after Guantanamo. No support. This is why I'm not sharing my voice for just the support only. As people suffering over there, I'm worried about them. Time when you get out, this would happen to us, to them. I don't want it to happen. I want to tell people because if you say we are bad people, and many times they don't help, is less confusion. If you want to help people to say bad people, encourage them, as they say, American second chance. They say, okay. I believe I'm good person from the beginning and the end until now. Okay, even people accuse me, doesn't matter for me because I know myself better than anybody else, and the God before that they know what I am. But I try to if you want a second chance to help people, to have to encourage people to engage society, because a lot of people get to prison. After prison, many story, they succeed, but not all of them. They get negative thinking because people they think they not ignore them, they don't support them. Until now, for my disability, of also about my hand, I lost my hand, accident. No, but disabilities our age, you can work like they hire you to work, and see your case. A lot of difficult, a lot of obstacles. This why even we talk like an hour because it's 20 years, for example, for me. It's not that simple. A lot of things have to say, but I hope so when they share my story, like in details, and memorize everything what happened to me and everybody else. For example, they charged me twice in military commission and drop my cases and for nothing. And what I can say, I hope so somebody hear our voices and they consider like as for to help people and to engage society. Because it is exaggeration. Like, people a lot things is politic. We are victim. They talk about us. They keep at us, and nothing happens. We are normal. We are people, simple people. I am simple, very simple people. I have family as anybody else have family. I have good family. I have my brothers. I have, but also I'm suffering from my brothers. My mom, she told me once, many times, she told me, "Are you my son? Because a lot of things change on you." I said, "Hey, my mom, 27 years. I will left my country. 20 after I come back my country after 27 years is long, long time, and a lot of things change. My brothers are left them younger, like a child, and they get bigger. They don't know me very well. I don't. More than half my life, I don't live with them. I have to, yeah, and to engage, to take time, the process to heal myself. I do, for example, I alone by myself. I have to heal myself, but it take time. But you have to, of course, need to help anybody else. And thank you for understanding. I'm sorry for to talk. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sufyan. You're doing great. Ahmed, can you share whether or not you have gotten any support over the years from either the U.S. government or the Moroccan government?
Okay, I just want to point out that the ex-prisoners of Guantanamo, they will all, as I've mentioned, they will all suffer in the future uh, because they are regarded in the street, in the society, as the bad guys. They will always remain, and they will always stay as bad guys. Why? Because Guantanamo is still open, and the people who orchestrated, people who opened Guantanamo still at large. They haven't been held accountable. So as long as I said, Guantanamo is still open and there is no accountability, the people of Guantanamo, they will always remain bad guys. They will always have a stigma. There's something on their forehead that these are bad guys. And the only way and the only uh, solution for this is, as I said many times, is to close Guantanamo and to hold those big guys responsible and put them and to hold them accountable. Now, you mentioned, did we get any help? I just like to mention that it goes beyond that. See, Guantanamo and the suffering that took place, the torture, the degradation, dehumanization that took place in Guantanamo, it goes beyond helping the victims. You know what I mean? It's not about giving some donation or giving some charity and money to the victim. That goes beyond that. We should all rise to the occasion. We should all rise to the occasion. This is not about helping other people. This is not people of Guantanamo. This is not they are not like any other prisoners. This is a historical dismantling of the rule of law. This is before 9/11, as we all remember. Everybody was chanting, democracy is is flourishing in the West, and human rights and so on. And when Bill Clinton goes to China or Bush goes to China, the first issue is human rights, Chinese human rights, and so on. We all remember that. Now, this is the vital. This is the core point of the whole issue. Is Guantanamo? It's a test, if you like. It's a challenge. It's a test that was the whole nation, the whole world, all citizens of the world will put, as witnesses, in this big show of democracy and the rule of law. So it was like a kind of a test. It's a test. They will put to the test. And me and Sufyan and Daifi and many others, they were victims. We were the victims, and the witnesses of the show that took place in Guantanamo. So this goes beyond help that you get from government or from organization or from individuals. This is a historical dilemma, historical challenge that we all should rise to it. You know me. How could you allow United States of America to hold hundreds of people without trial, without charge for 21 years? America should never be allowed to talk about democracy and the rule of law. Any American citizen should not be allowed to talk about the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. They should not, as long as their government is not held accountable for what they did in Guantanamo, and as long as Guantanamo is open, nobody ever should talk or nobody should give any lessons about democracy, justice and the rule of law. Well, how can Biden, the US government, talks about justice, and they are not allowing people like me, Mansour, Sufyan, and many others to challenge the US government in court? I mean, come on, you are the US citizens. Tell your president. I mean, you voted for your president. I'm talking to 300 million Americans. You are voting for your president, for your next president. For what? You are voting for them to serve justice. Isn't that correct? When you vote for an American president, you are voting for justice, you are voting for democracy, and you are voting for the respect of human rights. And now your president are not doing so. You know what I mean? They are violating human rights in Guantanamo for 21 years. If this is happening in let's say, for instance, I mean, this is not even happening in Yemen. It's not even happening in in Iran, and it's not happening even in China. You name me one nation, one government around the world from the third world country that is holding people against their will for 21 years without trial and without charge. You name him one, please. None other than the US government. And yet you are allowing the US government once a year to go around. They're giving this lecture about the foreign department of the US government. They're giving a lecture about the violation of human rights around the world. You know what I mean? Which is a joke. You know what I mean? So again, this is something to do with everybody who believes in human rights, everybody who believes in the rule of law. This should hold the US government accountable. And this is a test. Do we have a voice? Okay, we all talk about democracy and we're chanting a song. Do we have a voice? Okay, where is our voice? Oh, this is a real test. Does our voice matter? I'm talking to the whole world who believe in democracy and who are voting to elect a democratic government, whether in Europe or in America. Do you have a voice? Okay, what is that voice? Your government is holding people against their will for 21 years. It's not even happening in a third world country. So this is beyond. Excuse me, I know that you're trying to help the prisoners. You're trying to help us. Thank you so much for what you are doing. You're doing you're doing a marvelous job. And I thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. But I just want to, point out that this goes beyond that. This is a historical challenge. This is a test. Allah, God has put America and its might and Europe and its might, and there were all this slogan of human rights, and God has put them, and under the eyes of the whole world. The whole world is watching. It's a test. It's a test. Everybody's watching. Where's the human rights? 21 years of dismantling of the rule of law for 21 years.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmed.
I keep repeating myself. And
no, but it's the point to repeat, and I'm glad you're hitting that home, because sometimes it's easy to lose sight of what really matters in this conversation. And I just wanted to uplift a comment that was in the chat that said, funds are needed, like we're talking about, but so is systemic change, and it really is bigger than what people here can do on our own. And what we're doing is important, but ultimately it's about continuing to press accountability and never losing sight of what we're asking for. So Maha, I think I'll turn it over to you for the last question for the panel, and then we'll try to take one or two audience questions.
Yes, so I'm going to try to merge two questions, just because I think it's really important to hear from all of you. So what would be really great for all of us here today to hear is, what would justice look like for you? And how does that justice tie into your hopes and dreams for the future?
Yeah, thank you, Maha. Justice. Justice is the balance for everything, as individual level, family, communities, even the universe. It's the balance for everything. When justice disappears, injustice immediately takes place. So, for us, speak on like former Guantanamo detainees and Guantanamo detainees, justice, first of all, closing Guantanamo. When I say closing Guantanamo, it's not just shutting the physical Guantanamo physically, but also United States government must acknowledge what happened in Guantanamo, acknowledge the torture, the abuses, must issue an official apology for the victims and reparation for the victims, also accountability. And if any of the prisoners Guantanamo accused of any crime, they should be tried before U.S. justice and sentenced. Justice for everyone, for 9/11 victims, for Guantanamo victims, for the black site victims, for drone assassination victims. This is justice. It's not just for former Guantanamo detainees. It is for everyone, for our humanity, because Guantanamo target us all, as Ahmed said, target us as humans. So today, no matter what the American government said, and I have to say, we have to always distinguish between American government and American people. And I can tell you, like, most our supporters are Americans. Most the voices to speak against Guantanamo are Americans. We appreciate that, and we need those voices to speak out. And it is a healthy, you know, when when the first time we arrived at Guantanamo, we looked at Americans through Guantanamo scope, the torture, the abuse, the rape, the force feeding, you name it. When we start interacting with lawyers, with people who treat us humanly, now we become to understand more about what America is about, and we left out a most of our supporters are Americans, people who actually acknowledge that government has done wrong. Many of them like we are sorry and they want to support. And we need those voices, and we need those. These voices can help to bring an action to justice. Justice also accountability. We must and we want and we need to see people brought to justice. Either George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Rumsfeld, General Miller, and all of those who were involved in the torture, in the abuses, and either like in Guantanamo, in black sites, in drones, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, you name it. They should be brought to justice, because American justice system is the first very victim of those who were in power, because the misuse and abuse of power led to the abuse of the U.S. justice system. By calling for justice for Guantanamo, and we are actually calling for American justice system to have justice, because they betrayed their oath, they betrayed their country, they betrayed their people, they betrayed the American justice system itself. So this is justice for everyone.
And then Ahmed, if you could answer the question as well.
Mahag, my phone keeps breaking. Can you please repeat the question, because it keeps breaking? Can you?
Yes. So the question is, what would justice
Can
look
you
like?
repeat the question, Maha, please?
Yes. So
Because in case
yes.
repeat the question, thank you.
Yes. So our question is, what would justice look like to you? And with that, what are your hopes and dreams for the future?
You know, justice. We're talking justice. Justice need to be served. You know, people who are responsible for Guantanamo, they need to be held accountable. And this is a test, as I said, and this is a challenge for those who believe in democracy and the rule of law, and for those who have the right to vote. And these are the American people and the European people. Okay, that was said. Okay. Now the second part of justice that we can do that we can achieve with our hands in my case, okay, uh, all this pain that was inflicted on us, you know, by the soldiers, by the guards. I would just give you a glimpse, a small example for you to understand, for the viewers. When I was in Guantanamo, I think it was 2005. That was the worst time. That was the most painful era in Guantanamo. The worst the worst year. I think it was 2005. There was a lot of torture going on, a lot of hunger strike, torture, degradation, and so on. So I was on hunger strike for 10 days. And it was this female guard, an American female guard. I was denied food. I was 10 days on a hunger strike. I was not allowed to pray. She used to spray me and other guards with the spray every day. I was deprived from sleeping during that period. Okay, I was deprived from sleeping, and during all that, okay, extremely cold temperature, no food because I was on hunger strike. I wasn't allowed to sleep. You know, it's torture. You know, at its best. And this female guard, okay, once during that time, during my pain, she knocks on my window and she forced me to stand up, and I was very weak. And she made me watch her taking a candy, a chocolate candy from her pocket, okay, and she unwraps the candy while I was watching, and she was slow dancing, Okay, and she slowly took the candy with her tongue in a as she was dancing. And so she loves to eat the chocolate while I was in pain, and she made me watch her eating the chocolate while I was in pain, while I was going through hunger strike, sleep deprivation, extremely cold temperature. Now, for her, for people like her, for justice, if I want to do justice, if I want to put her on justice, if I was a judge, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to pass on a message to her, and that will show you how we feel. If I am to meet her again in the street, believe me, Maha and all of your guests, I will buy her chocolate. Okay. All she did to me, I will buy her chocolate. You know what I mean? That the only way for me to ease my pain is to offer her the chocolate. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing that 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 I can do or happen for me to get rid of my pain. If for me is to buy her chocolate. You know, it should be nice to her. Okay, that is for the guards only. I'm talking about guards because they have been used as much as we have been used as scapegoats. They have been used by their president, by George Bush. Okay, he has used the U.S. Army. But for those who are responsible, big ranking generals and George Bush, I need, I wish, I hope, May June is one day I would like to see them stand in trial and be held accountable.
And then finally, Sufyan. Sufyan, can you hear us? And thank you so much, Ahmed, for your excellent and amazing response. Sufyan, can you hear us?
نادي الشباب. Just minutes, please.
سفيان انا بنك الهاتف
خلاص.
الله شرع.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so our last question is, if you could tell us what does justice look like for you, and what are your hopes and dreams? Okay, so it looks like he's frozen again. So Leah, you want to just go ahead with the audience question?
Yeah, thanks everyone. This has been such a powerful conversation. And I think what I appreciate most about this is that it is forward looking, that it's not too late, that this is absolutely the time for us to continue demanding accountability. We talked about the long shadow of Guantánamo following all of you. And I hope that we can also make the shadow of Guantánamo follow George Bush and all the other, government officials who are responsible for it and other aspects of the war on terror. Today at the press conference, a special rapporteur said in her remarks that torture has no statute of limitations, that the people who perpetrated it, engaged in it, concealed in it, authorized it, remain liable for the entirety of their lives. And I think it's important for us to keep that shadow or spotlight or whatever the metaphor is on them and to continue sort of demanding accountability. There's one question that I'll just try to quickly answer. I mean, other people can add. Is there any effort for reparations to be paid to former Guantanamo detainees? And I think the short answer is many of us in civil society are trying to push for that, but on part of the U.S. government, there currently isn't any effort. There's been conversation about this, whether or not this UN voluntary fund for victims of torture that the U.S. puts a ton of money in could be used for something like that. I think we're still a long ways away, but that's why it's so important to keep demanding it. The special rapporteur's report today, and maybe in the thank you note, we can share that link with people, but it's a reminder that there are expectations and obligations that the U.S. government has to people that it tortures and harms and detains. And so I hope that there is language in there. This is a new chapter, as the special rapporteur said, that could potentially bring on some momentum for this push for reparations and accountability. Many groups, including the ones co-sponsoring this event, are working towards a future where that is possible. So I'll just end there and say, I think our hope is that there will be reparations one day, and we just need to be creative to think about how to get that.
So we are going to start closing out the panel just because we are short on time. But I wanted to give Ahmed and Mansour just a minute or so if you had any closing remarks, and then I will just do a quick recap.
I just want. There's not a remark. I just want to say thank you again. You know, I just want to say thank you again for being there. And without the efforts of the few good people like you know, justice will never be served. But thank God for people like you. You are very good people, few good people, but you are enough to serve justice. And as long as people like you exist, inshallah, justice will prevail, inshallah, and people will be held accountable, inshallah. Thank you very much for being there for us. Thank you so much.
Inshallah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for being here and
Okay.
sharing.
Yeah. Last word, I would like to say that we're approaching the 22nd anniversary of Guantanamo in 6 months. Guantanamo symbolizes torture, injustice, lawlessness, abuse of power, and indefinite detention. And honestly, it's like a death sentence if you look at it that way. So I would like to say to Trump, Ron DeSantis, George W. Bush, we are going to use our Guantanamo against your Guantanamo when we're going to win. Because Guantanamo itself is a victim, and we are seek justice for Guantanamo, and we will keep the fighting. We will keep fighting because we stand for you guys. It's not just, I'm not talking about on my behalf, or we represent, you know, those silence voices. So all of you, we need you to speak out. We need you to write, tweet, because the only thing we found out effective in Guantanamo case is media and media pressure. So where we are now, because the few who choose to stand, who speak out, and who choose to do something, because silence is another form of oppression. So we need to speak out. It's not just about Guantanamo, because Guantanamo now is everywhere. So, but our Guantanamo is like symbolize those Guantanamos. So thank you all for this event. Thank you all for your support. And thank you for attending this event. And we hope to see you in the future, inshallah. I hope next our meeting will be about talking about closing Guantanamo, or talking about how George W. Bush and Dick Cheney are being like in court, how they, you know, their trials and so on. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to my sister Khadija, may Allah bless her. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mansour, and thank you, Ahmed, again. We're really so grateful to hear your stories, because we know it is painful to recount the abuse and violence you suffered at the hands of the United States government. Before we close, I just want to note a question that was asked about assurances for American Muslims interested in donating, and being, you know, sort of worried about the concerns that, of course, have come up throughout the years post 9/11. And so, you know, we can't necessarily guarantee, you know, what the U.S. government will and can do. However, the money that you donate goes to a registered 501c3, and we follow all compliance laws, including the Patriot Act. And, you know, it is unfortunate that as Muslims, American Muslims, and Muslims in general, that we have to think about these questions when we're trying to help other Muslims. To me, that is devastating, because that is another way that the US government perpetuates the violence of the war on terror.
Maha, I would like to sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
You know, people do not talk about the 40 million than spent every year in Guantanamo. It's like approximately $18 million month for each detainee. You know, I want to do something. When the US government bought me, they would paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. When they sent me to Serbia, they paid millions of dollars. So they destroy our life. They destroyed our families because we are not the one who get destroyed. So when we some people like how we can get guaranteed that people, you know, I'm talking that fund that have been used, American taxpayers, your money has been misused and abused for invading countries, drone assassination, torturing people. And I think people should pay attention to the US officials who misuse and abuse that fund. So what we give, if you give the prison like 1 or 2 thousand, for example, a prisoner who have like kidney failure, he needs to work like twice a week. If we send them $2,000, he has family, kids, wife, has to pay. It's nothing. Wallah, it is nothing. And we have to make people sign. And it's a long process. Lawyers involved in. And every individual case, I know because I am the one who was like the director of this project. So we need to make sure every individual, we need the fund where, how we're going to spend, we're going to spend. So money is not going like to anyone like this. So we have to be very selective because we know we are being monitored. We know the government would use anything against us and anything to entrap us. So we're very, very careful in this issue. And like what actually like hurts those hundreds of billions of dollars spent to abuse human and humanity, and nobody even talking about it, nobody even mentioned it. Like, but on us, there is like a big telescope, and every cent we try to send to help those victims. And we feel like we, as Muslims, sometimes, Allah, I feel like being a Muslim is a crime. And we have to keep a proof our innocence, prove our humanity, prove our every fucking time. I am not going to continue doing this. I quit doing that at Guantanamo. I am just human like you. I have ambition, I have dreams, I have wishes, I have everything. In my life, I never hurt any Americans. And I challenge any Americans from the 400 million to say, this guy hurting me. So sorry, I get carried out because, when you go through the process, it's like, I know it must be done. But at the same thing, you feel like, I'm being monitored. We need to do this. We need to ensure. In some cases, we skip some cases because there is something we cannot meet. Not because they don't deserve the fund or the support, because there is something like there is some obstacles there. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, man. I'm really sorry.
No. We totally appreciate everything you're saying, Mansoor. And, I think that has been the consequence, obviously, of the war on terror, is that the Muslim identity has been criminalized. And you, Ahmed, and Sufyan, of course, have borne the brunt of that. So again, we're so grateful to hear your voices, to read your testimonies. And for anyone who has not yet read Mansoor's and Ahmed's book, please do purchase them. Please listen to panels. Please educate yourself. One of the reasons we started the fund, right, was to help the men post Guantanamo. But we all know that that's not enough. It is about monetary support, but there's something else that comes with the monetary support. And that is taking a stance that we believe these men, we believe their stories. We believe they didn't deserve this violence and torture. So when we help, when we give money, when we donate, when we advocate, when we work to get legislation passed, there are many groups who are doing this work. It means that we stand with survivors. And today, on the UN Day in support of victims of torture, that is precisely what we need to be doing now. We've raised at this point $2,305. For those of you who may be joining late, our goal today is $6,000. We would so appreciate it if you could help us reach this goal. As you know from the introductory remarks, we cannot wait for the US government to do the right thing. Because in order to do the right thing, it has to admit and acknowledge it did the wrong thing and engaged in state violence. Until that happens, until we build the power to push back on the US government enough so that it provides justice for survivors, again, it is up to us to help them, particularly if you are an American citizen, because these crimes were done in our name and with our money. So again, please, please, please donate to the fund. Share this panel, this excellent panel today. Share it with your friends, your networks, your family, anyone who you think needs to know about Guantánamo. The chapter on Guantánamo is not closed, nor will it be closed even if the prison is closed, because its legacy lives on in the lives of the men who faced the brutality of US state violence. As a Muslim myself, I feel a special indebtedness to helping these men because they are part of my community, my ummah. And so I hope for any of you who are Muslim as well, listening to this broadcast, that you will similarly rise up to the call to help our Muslim brothers who have suffered too much and for too long. So thank you all again for joining today. We will be sending out a follow-up email with all of the links that we shared here today. And again, if you can help us reach $6,000 today to provide small grants for the men transferred out of Guantánamo, please do. Thank you so much. And we look forward to staying in touch with all of you in the future.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خير جميعا.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.